Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of English Podcast. I'm Kayla, and today, we're diving into one of the most powerful strategies to improve your English skills, training your brain to think in English.
That's right, Kayla. Thinking in English is like the secret sauce to fluency. Once you master it, you'll find it easier to speak, understand, and even write in English without getting stuck in translation.
But let's be honest, it's not always easy. Many English learners feel like their brains are stuck in their native language, and switching to English feels like climbing a mountain.
Exactly. But don't worry. Like any skill, training your brain to think in English is something you can develop with the right strategies. And in today's episode, we'll give you practical tips, step-by-step guidance, and even some fun exercises to help you along the way. So whether you're a beginner or an advanced learner, this episode is packed with useful insights you can start applying today. Let's get started, Kayla.
Yeah, let's begin by understanding why thinking in English is so important. Alex, why do you think this is such a big deal for language learners?
Well, when you're constantly translating everything from your native language to English, it slows down your response time. It's like adding an extra step to every sentence. Imagine trying to have a conversation and having to translate every word. It's exhausting. And on top of that, translations aren't always accurate. Different languages have different structures, expressions, and cultural nuances. Sometimes, a direct translation doesn't make sense. That's why thinking in English helps you become more natural and fluent. Instead of relying on translation, you're responding directly in the language. It's like flipping a switch in your brain to English mode.
And here's the best part, when you think in English, you're not just improving your language skills. You're also building confidence. It's a huge step toward feeling more comfortable using English in real-life situations.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the practical part, how to train your brain to think in English.
The first tip is to start small. Alex, what does that mean for someone just beginning this process?
It means not overwhelming yourself by trying to think in full sentences or paragraphs right away. Start with simple things like individual words. For example, when you see something around you, think of its name in English.
Right. If you see a chair, just think chair. If you see a car, think car. Don't let your brain go to your native language first. Make it a habit to label everything in English.
Exactly. And you can expand from there. For example, instead of just thinking car, you can think that's a red car, or the car is parked. Start adding small details as you get more comfortable.
It's like building blocks. Start with the basics, and over time, you'll create more complex thoughts. The key is to make this a daily habit.
Tip number 2 is a game changer. Narrate your day in English.
This one is so practical. Throughout the day, describe what you're doing in your head. For example, I'm making coffee, I'm checking my phone, or I'm walking to the store.
It might feel strange at first, but it's a great way to keep your brain in English mode. And the best part is, you don't need anyone else to practice with. You can do this entirely on your own.
And here's a pro tip, when you're narrating, don't worry about being perfect. The goal isn't to use complicated grammar. Just use the words and phrases you know.
That's so important. If you don't know a word, don't stress. Instead, look it up and add it to your mental vocabulary. Over time, you'll find yourself using more and more English without even thinking about it.
Tip number 3 is all about immersion. Alex, how does immersing yourself in English help with thinking in the language?
Immersion surrounds you with English, making it a natural part of your environment. Listen to English podcasts, watch movies or TV shows, and read books or articles. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more comfortable you'll feel thinking in it.
But it's not just about passive listening. Engage with what you're consuming. For example, if you're watching a show, repeat interesting phrases out loud. Or if you're reading, try summarizing the main idea in your own words.
That's a great point. Immersion helps you pick up natural expressions, common phrases, and even the rhythm of the language. It's like soaking your brain in English.
And don't forget to mix it up. Try different types of content, like news, podcasts, or even songs. Each one gives you a slightly different perspective on the language.
The next tip is to practice thinking in English with someone else. This could be a language partner, a friend, or even a tutor.
Having someone to practice with makes a huge difference. Set aside time to speak only in English, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes a day.
And if you don't have a partner, you can still practice by talking to yourself out loud. Pretend you're having a conversation or answering questions in English. It might feel silly, but it works.
The key is consistency. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to stay in English mode. And finally, tip number 5, play mental games in English. Alex, do you have a favorite mental game for this?
Absolutely. One of my favorites is describing objects around me. For example, if I see a coffee mug, I'll think, it's a white mug with black stripes. It's full of hot coffee.
That's a good one. Another fun game is word association. Start with one word, like apple, and then think of related words, red, fruit, tree, and so on. It keeps your brain active in English.
You can also make up stories about random things you see. For example, imagine the life of someone sitting across from you on the bus. Where are they going? What's in their bag? It's a fun way to be creative while practicing English.
So, there you have it, 5 actionable tips to train your brain to think in English. Start small, narrate your day, immerse yourself, practice with a friend, and play mental games.
Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about making English a natural part of your daily life.
And the more you practice, the faster you'll see results. Thinking in English isn't just a skill, it's a habit. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of English Podcast. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next lesson.
And don't forget to share this episode with a friend who's learning English too. Together, we can make language learning fun and practical.